Yo, there's something beautiful about Bearcats basketball. High flying.
Kenyon with a jam.
Shot denying.
Miles rejected.
There's just an energy that comes with the Cats. A rich history built on toughness.
And Mick Cronin looks like he wants a technical.
A bring-your-own-lunch pail mentality. For a long time, UC was the hunted.
I felt that we couldn't lose.
I think it's time the Bearcats do a little hunting of their own.
Once y'all done with them, send them to me, man. You know what I mean? We can put them on the court. Keep that Bearcat thing going.
I am fired up.
Takes it all the way. Oh! It's going to be Little.
I wonder how Steve Logan would be over in Afghanistan or somewhere. I bet he'd be pretty poised. He just does not get rattled.
Van Exel, he'll cut it loose. Watch out. Stevenson cuts it back. Oh! Kilpatrick outruns everybody. Johnson, the exclamation point.
We've been dealt the king of heartbreak over and over again.
Rozier. Smith and
Everything they worked for was undone on one play.
But I see the light. The Cats are back. Lukosius, open three, got it! Oh, baby! Welcome to the only live Bearcats postgame show on YouTube. This is Chatterbox Bearcats. Wow. That was a roller coaster ride. Bearcats looked like they were going to run away with this one in Fifth Third Arena, and it was a near disaster, but the Cincinnati Bearcats lived to see another day. Welcome to Chatterbox Bearcats, everyone. Chuck Walter Houdini with you. 69-67 in favor of the Bearcats. They get a huge win on today's show. Jizzle James setting the tone. The usage rate absurd. Some shots absurd, but let a playmaker play. Dillon Mitchell had a 1-2 today. He was Bearcat tough. Huge blocks in the final moments. Singular, but huge buckets as well. Josh Reed had his moments there where he looked like this guy in the first half. Baby Zion, our Josh Reed, playmaker for a little bit and then kind of disappeared down the stretch. But Dan looked better. Seamoss had some big stones threes. Day-to-day defensive effort, elite. Omier in foul trouble was a savior. We'll get into that. Too close for comfort, but it is a game you needed to win to improve to 7-10 in conference play, 17-11 on the season. You went out, you're in the NCAA tournament. Now, Houston's coming up. We got a lot more to get into, but we celebrate one win at a time. On paper, it's the second biggest win over the year, a quad one against the Baylor Bears. Danny, how we feeling? By the way, welcome to the only call-in show on the internet involving the Cincinnati Bearcats. The link is in the chat. Hop in the chat right now on YouTube if you're listening there and click that link. You can pop in backstage and we will welcome your calls. Sup, Houdini? How we feeling?
Quad one Wes, as it stands today. Now, the way the quad works, they're going to drop Baylor one slot or two slots, whatever it was, and it'll be a quad two. But for today, we celebrate. And like you said, God, they tried to just ruin it all. Outscored by 11 in the second half. Just started letting them three-point contest for Baylor. I mean, wide open looks. Thank God, what's his name, got that fourth foul, because Omier got his fourth foul, because we were in serious trouble. We could not stop him. Their biggest guy was 6'7", and we were getting out rebounded left and right. I think we got out rebounded 21-22, gave up 9 offensive boards. Like, you just can't let it happen when they're playing on 2 flat tires. I mean, they're coming in extremely injured. Jeremy Roach started going nuts for a second, and he's barely, he's been relegated to the bench. But at the end of the day, we won the game. We hit some big shots when we needed to hit big shots. Seamoss even showed up a little bit in the second half with a big 3. Jizzle James hit a big 3. Josh Reed, I mean, a first half for the ages. People are going to Kobe Bryant's 81. Jody Meeks went for 55 at Kentucky. But where were you when Josh Reed had that first half against Baylor? He was doing and one mixtape shit out there. So there was definitely a lot of positives, but God, I wish they could just control a lead and finish a game. But here we are. They got to win.
Yeah, Josh Reed, 9 points in the first half, finished with 11. So the Kobe game, the Wilt game, the Jody Meeks game, not necessarily, but he did play well. Betsy snuck in there, hit a 3 for a minute. He had 3 in the game. Skillings had 4. Seamoss had 7. Day with 10. Jizzle James led the way with 18 on 6 of 20 shooting, 3 of 8 from deep. Only 1 assist, which is insane that he only had 1 assist with the amount of time that the ball was in his hands today. That'll be a topic on today's show. Aziz Bandaogo had 3 and 6 boards. And then Dillon Mitchell, our Chatterbox Bearcats player of the game. Yes, the NIL fund. If you're watching on YouTube, you see the shirt. It's going to Jizzle today. But our player of the game, brought to you by Awakenings Coffee in Hyde Park Square, is sent to Dillon Mitchell. 13-9, 3 in the game. 3 assists in the game, rather, and the block as well. And the block was massive. We're going to talk about all this. I want to set the stage, however, with Baylor. On paper, solid win, right? Baylor, a quad 1 team. A lot of it has to do with just their scheduling in general. They played unreal teams in the non-conference, and against all those unreal teams, they lost. They did beat Arkansas, however, and they had a huge win against St. John's before I would have considered them unreal, but they've had a great season. Anyways, aside from that, you go down who they've beaten. They're 3-5 over the last 8. I thought it was a little insane when people said Baylor's a bubble team, because we watched them like a month and a half ago, and that was not a bubble team. I said, if they're a bubble team, Cincy's fucked. I originally thought that. Their resume, however, when you go through it, they got that win over St. John's. Kansas is their only win over a team above 500 in conference. So we have the 1 win over BYU. We don't have that St. John's win to hold on to. But yeah, I mean, Baylor loses to Cincy today. They have TCU on the road. When you're talking about potential bid thieves, I mean, regular season bid thieves, why not Cincinnati potentially stealing a bid from Baylor with the way their wheels are falling off the tires, man? Their resume is nothing special.
No, I mean, they got the name Baylor. They've been making deep runs in the tournament for the last, 10 years, it seems like. So they kind of have that going for them. But it's going to be tough to steal from Baylor unless they just if they lose out, obviously, then we're going to jump Baylor, a team like Baylor. But just take a look around the rest of the bubble, man. The rest of the bubble, the more and more I look at it, the more and more I'm like, I mean.
How are we not a lock at this point?
Yeah,
like, how are we still?
It is sad that we're even discussing this, because the bubble is truly horrendous. It's horrific to even look at. And we're probably going to bump into like maybe first 4 outline here for the next, few days or so. Right in that area. We're not in the tournament by any means at this point.
Next 4 out. We'll be next 4 out in most.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you beat Houston, then no, we're like a lock for the tournament. Now, if that happens, I would be pretty shocked. But hey, crazier things have happened. They just got to keep chipping away, because even if you lose to Houston, like we're talking about, the bubble's so bad, maybe you get a couple conference games and the committee actually takes that into consideration at all. Then you're like, I think you'll be sweating. I think you really will be sweating, even if you lose to Houston. So if you would have told me that we were 2-8 in conference, putting up 50 burgers left and right, I would have thought you were crazy. So it's just a roller coaster of a season, man. All of a sudden, Josh Reed's like a mainstay in the starting lineup. Things have changed drastically. But hey, a win's a win, even though Baylor is hurt. They're struggling right now. We're kind of in completely opposite trajectories right now. I think before coming in, they lost 4 of 6. We won 4 of 6. And you needed to win this game. I mean, you absolutely had to have it, and we got it. Wasn't pretty, but we got it.
Jekyll and Hyde is what this team is, and oftentimes it's in the same game, and sometimes who's the bad one? Is it Jekyll or is it Hyde? I've been asking this question for years. Jekyll sounds like a kind of a jackknob, right? I think it's Jekyll is the bad guy. Dr. Jekyll.
I thought it was Jekyll.
Jekyll, whatever. Jekyll.
I think
Jekyll.
Jekyll.
Either way, this team is Jekyll some games. They're Hyde. Oftentimes they're a mix of both in the same game. And today it was like they'd be, let's say Hyde is the bad one. They'd be Hyde for 10 minutes, and then they'd go on a 9-0 run. They'd be Jekyll. Then they go back to Hyde. Baylor would be playing well. Then it's back to Jekyll. you can never predict what's going on. I mean, for God's sakes, we've opened up shows like this. Literally laid this team to rest. We've opened up shows like this. And we're somewhere in the middle. You know, we're not here with the sad piano music, but I don't know what music at this point to download on the StreamYard app to play for the people, because I don't know what to think. Like you were saying on the last show with Lily that you did, you have so many outrageous takes. Everyone does. I mean, from game to game, from stanza to stanza, from TV timeout to TV timeout. Who are we?
Tough. It's really tough to read this team. I mean, we've seen, it's Jekyll and Hyde. So we've confirmed, wow, we have a chat that was really familiar with Jekyll and Hyde. Hyde was the bad one. Okay. Dr. Jekyll was the good guy. You really haven't seen it's Jekyll and Hyde, man. It's, pick your poison. What are you getting today? And crazy things can happen. Like Houston is a very good team. I mean, it's the best team in the Big 12. You're playing them on the road. It's going to be extremely difficult. But what gives me a little bit of hope is we went to Iowa State and had every opportunity to win. I know we ended up losing by damn near 10 points or whatever it was, but we played really well. So if these guys could shoot the ball well, and we shot, 45%, I believe, from three tonight, that's going to help anybody, especially against a team like Houston. And hey, Oklahoma State right now is up 6 points against Iowa State. Okay. Oklahoma State stinks. There's always a chance, guys. There's always a chance. But even if that doesn't happen, this game today, you got to like what you saw from the guys. Initially, I thought maybe we blow them out. We get a 20-point win. Didn't happen. We didn't cover either, Chuck. Buried the lead. We didn't even get the hook. The hook killed us. Captain Hook, 2.5. You're still muted, Chuck. I'm sure you're saying good stuff, but
I said, arg, Captain Hook gets you. I did see that the line was minus 1.5, and Brownie points to me for having to do the arg twice. Really brought the emphasis the second time, but I saw minus 1.5. So some people are smiling, Houdini. I'm sorry that you waited too long, apparently.
Oh, shit. Well, that's on me. Vegas, you win again.
You put it in? You put it in?
I may have put it in. Now, listen, it's not about me and my finances, okay? This is about the UC Bearcats. So that's what we talk about on this program, and they got a big
no
win.
doubt. It's about the Cincinnati Bearcats. The mute monster got me. Also, the StreamYard link is in the chat if you want to pop back on stage, and we will get you into the show for the only Cincinnati Bearcats call-in show on the internet, on YouTube. That is Chatterbox Bearcats. Let's kind of run through the notes of this game that I took before we get into Houston, and then I want to finish up today's show with a little sonnet to Mick Cronin, who won his 500th game. I think it's relevant in Bearcats world. We have a little chat on that to finish things. But I put King McClure dressing like he's at a cocktail party. Ties are dead. Are ties dead, Houdini? What are your thoughts on ties? Because I'm a pocket square guy. It's like the goofy cousin, but it can go to the same party. I just thought it was very strange on a national broadcast, ESPN2. King McClure was dressed like he was, like he was head of the country club.
I go no ties, man. I agree. Ties. I haven't worn a tie. I don't care what the occasion is.
You only wear ties when someone makes you wear ties. I mean, let's cut to the chase. Like who is a diehard fan of ties at this point?
Well, what is it? The black tie weddings? I guess that's when, like, apparently if you show up without, in all black, like a tuxedo, you're getting death stares from the bride. So that may be the one time that you got to go with the tie. Other than that, no. The buttons down. Dude, they suffocate you. It's like a dog collar. What are we doing here? We've moved on. Anyhow, go ahead.
More notes. Jizzle the Menace. I thought he set the tone with his first bucket, a little step back deep one. Then he had insane on the ball defense that led to a turnover. Day-Day had great on the ball defense. Also was great off the ball. Had a few pickpockets, one where he jumped the lane, and then another one where he just went behind and whoop, took it the other way. I think the Cats scored that possession. I put Seamoss got cooked a little bit on the defensive side of the ball, but that was early in the game. The start was awesome, though. It was Jizzle. It was a Day-Day jumper to go up 5-2, 5-0, whatever it was. Then Mitchell has a strong take to the bucket, and he was assertive today. I think he should keep taking it to the basket, especially when he's knocking down threes or his three ball looks good. And he had that little mid-range game going today. When he can do that, I mean, it opens up a lot of the floor if he can hit that shot. Then Josh Reed hits a three. We got 2 9-0 runs in the first half. It was working. It feels like this team is growing. I thought having Seamoss and Dan come off the bench is intriguing. You brought that up in the last show. We did have some offensive boards, I thought, especially Dan and Dillon, that were nice throughout the game. Again, I got
burned.
I had another note in there. I had my second note. Yeah, Seamoss getting cooked on D. I put it in there twice. Then I put why are basic passes so difficult? Day has been awesome. We've never beaten Baylor. We now have beaten Baylor. Mitchell had a want-to in the paint. He was attacking. He looked good. And that was the majority of my notes from this game. But the usage rate, it was insane for Jizzle James, man. He had the ball in his hands at all times, sometimes a little too much, where it was like, let's swing it. Let's start moving the basketball. But once Josh Reed stopped being assertive, then it was like, all right, it's either Jizzle or Day or really no one's attacking like they need to be right now. So you kind of had the ball in his hands, had to have the ball in his hands. And the best offense was a step back three or just trying to get to a spot and knocking one down. And hey, it worked. I mean, it got you 69 points in the game. The Cats shot at 46% from the floor, 43% from deep. They get a W and only turn it over 7 times in the process. So a pretty clean basketball game in terms of that compartment of the stat sheet. But when you're talking about a clean win, it was nothing of the sort. Again, I'll throw it up for the people on the YouTube page. It was a near disaster. It felt like the son of beast. You got off it. You had a headache, but you were still alive. You were still alive. And hopefully, unlike the son of beast, they don't take our program away.
Well, based on what Day and Jizzle James have been doing lately, I thought they didn't have great games, man. I mean, Jizzle James went 6 of 20. I thought he held onto the ball way, way too much. I know he is our best offensive threat. He's one of the few guys that can get his own shot, but we don't need dribbling the ball for 20 seconds of a shot clock. I mean, you can see by the efficiency, 6 of 20. There's probably better looks out there. I understand why he's forcing it because, like you said, once Josh Reed went no-show in the second half, and you can't ask Josh Reed to do this whole thing by himself, guys. So from Jizzle and Day, I thought they had pretty, below par performances, at least what we've seen lately. And we still got a W. And, Jizzle James finished with 18. Day was tenacious on the defense like he always is. Had that big jump ball to end the game, which was huge. Just huge hustle points there. What'd you think? There's no way Wes Miller at the end of the half. I just have a gripe in my notes. The end of the first half, there was like 10 seconds left. We had a timeout because they wanted to review the shot clock. And Jizzle just launches a step back three with 7 seconds left. People were, bitching on Twitter like, did Wes draw that up? There's no way Wes Miller drew up, hey, let's shoot a fadeaway three with 7 seconds on the clock.
We would have bitched about the other offense too if they went for the lob attempt. I mean, where has the lobs to the sky been? Is it just me or are we saving that one for March? We're like, maybe if we get it off tape for 3 weeks in a row, we'll go into March against VCU and the, or whoever it may be in the 10-7. And they won't have that tape. They'll be watching our last 5. And we're just running offense through Jizzle. And all of a sudden, Aziz off the screen. Cram it up your cram hole floor.
You would have thought we'd get more alley-oops just because Baylor's undersized. But I didn't really see many opportunities. I guess they weren't, playing a ton of help side defense. They were more so just relying on their shot blockers or the guy guarding the ball to defend the rim. So I didn't see a ton of opportunities. I don't care if we never see him again unless it's Dillon Mitchell. I'm kind of sick of the alley-oop. I think we're like 30% efficiency on the alley-oop. But yeah, Dillon Mitchell was the player of the game. I'd have to agree with you there. And hey, Seamoss hit 2 big threes. Dan Skillings looked okay. He looked okay. And then Betsy hit a big one, but our bench is struggling. I think he's probably going to keep this lineup. I don't think you put Seamoss in the starting lineup over what we've seen from Josh Reed lately. Let me see if we got anything else. I mean, we just started being sloppy with the ball too, man. Just some terrible passes. I know we only finished with 7 turnovers. It felt like it was 15. It was just getting sloppy.
Is this serious? I was so intent on getting the show up and running that I didn't pay attention to this. But were they playing We Bring the Boom with 40 seconds left in a 2-point game with double chunk chocolate cookie and a chicken bake? No way. Were they playing that?
I don't know. Were they? I
We
couldn't
need
hear
boots
it.
on the ground. We need Niehaus to call in. He's like, oh, I was livid. Who cares though, man? There's no complaints. Play it. Let him feast.
I mean, thank God, Chuck. So we did shoot. We shot 44%, 10 of 23 from three. If you miss one of those, this game is completely different and we lose. So kudos to us for figuring out how to shoot the damn rock, because that was big. 9 of 14 from the line, 64%. Not great, but you'll take getting to the line 14 times compared to their 5.
Yes, it is confirmed. The news of the night that the Costco guys song "We Bring the Boom" was playing at the arena with 48 seconds to go in a 2-point game. Whatever happened to a little like Bone Crusher? We ain't ever scared. Like, come on now. The guys listen to that music too. We don't want to hear about double chunk chocolate cookies from Big AJ and Big Justice.
I don't know though, man. Maybe they had a team meeting, like the audio guys, and they were like, "Listen,
They did say on the broadcast it's a lighthearted team."
Yeah.
They were basically
like,
just
"It's
like
not working."
the announcers were like, "Yes, Wes had to change up his coaching method. He's been a little too hard on the guys, a little too serious. He is a serious dude." I got to sit next to him at the Mueller Stag and met him at a Reds game when I was doing Reds Live. And like he's stern, man. He's not cracking jokes. And you know me, I'm a jovial guy. I'm cracking jokes and he wasn't, tossing them back my way. Let's put it that way. But this is a jokester team, Dan and Dillon and some of these guys. We had Day on the show. He was cheesing it up the entire time. Like maybe it is double chunk chocolate cookies and dodgeball that take this team over the top.
Yeah, do you think like Wes had a coaches meeting? He goes, "Listen, like the DMX and the Bone Thugs, it's like not working for our team." He goes, "I started playing a little Big Justice and I saw the guys respond. Okay, so we got to talk to the audio guys at the stadium, maybe get that pumping through the speakers. And hey, it's a win, so you got to do it next home game too." Do we even shit? How many games we got left at home?
We got Houston on the road. That's up next. Then it's Kansas State at home, and then it's Oklahoma State on the road.
One.
So Kansas State. We got one more.
Double chunk chocolate chip all over that Kansas State game. Guaranteed. Locked it in.
No doubt about it. All right, we move on from the Costco guys to the Houston Cougars. That's a segue. Who like a double chunk chocolate cookie, get 5 big. Boom! Boom! I'm not doing a full 5. Sorry for everyone that's listening in the morning. There's your morning cup of Joe. Again, brought to you by Awakenings Coffee. Segue. I'm on fire tonight. 16-1 in conference of the Houston Cougars. They just beat Texas Tech. They beat Iowa State in back-to-back games. Man, so Texas Tech, their only conference loss. They entered conference play number 14. They've risen up to a number 1 seed status and a for-real national champion contender. LJ Cryer is their leading scorer, 14.5 per game. They still have Jawan Roberts. Dude's been there since Rob Gray, I swear. Like, I don't recognize a lot of names in college basketball with all the movement. It's not like it used to be where I could tell you, who everyone in the Conference USA had. I was like, oh, yeah, I think DePaul has one of the Deaners. I think they have Drake Deaner. It's not like that anymore. But Jawan Roberts is a name that I've been hearing for a long time. They do not have Dejan Giroux anymore, biting dudes' ears off. But, man, they are physical as hell. It's what a Kelvin Sampson coach team does. However, the rebounding, not like it's been in the past. They're 109th in the country. We are 213th by comparison. They do, however, have the number 1 defense in the nation, allowing 57 points per game. The last win over Houston was February 1st, 2020. That was pre a global pandemic. That was the last win. It was the Zach Harvey game where he had a couple buckets in transition. I think Keith Williams iced it with a late dunk, and a lot has changed since that day. I lived in Lexington at the time. I hadn't even started hosting Reds Live. You know how long ago that was, and all the things I've done since then. I've lived in like 4 different states, been in like 4 different careers. Losses since then by 13, by 38, by 37, by 22, by 18, by 13, by 13. This is all consecutive by 6. That was the Landers-Nolly game. The Cats should have won. Then they followed it up with a 21-point loss. Last year, they inched a little bit closer. They lost by 5 and 8. One of those games, they had a lead in the second half for. We are closing the gap, but Wes Miller owns Remix. Kelvin Sampson owns Wes Miller. He's 8-0 against him. This has been the most frustrating rivalry, man, since he was 32-5 all time against Houston before the pandemic. From the 1950s to the Andy Kennedy era, UC was 22-1 against Houston. And that is why I get so frustrated at that idiot that popped in the chat and said UC shouldn't even be in the Big 12. It should be SMU. Nonsense. This stuff changes fast. And you know what? Houston's audience, when they had some teams that mimicked Cincinnati right now, non-tournament teams, I went back and looked it up 10 years ago. They were hitting about 2,500 per game. They had a top 25 team in town and got a season high 3,300 to show up a decade ago. What changed, you asked? Kelvin Sampson. That is it. It is coaching. Wes has been given incredible fan support. I'm not saying it's time he beats Houston right now. I'm just saying what Kelvin Sampson has done there with the odds stacked against him in a dormant, dominant program like Houston that had been so bad for so long. It goes to show you that coaching is truly everything, man.
Yeah, and what is that? Dazed and Confused? Matthew McConaughey. He's not supposed to. He shouldn't win this game, but it'd be really cool if you did, Wes. It'd be really cool if you did, because that's the blueprint, man. It's Houston. That's what you like as a UC fan. You're like, God, that could be us. It was a fellow American conference foe that has totally flipped the script, and now they are one of the most dominant teams in college basketball. If you play like you did against Baylor, you are going to get blown out of that gym. Way more physical, way more depth. Now, as far as a high-flying offense, not necessarily what we've seen in the past. I'm pretty sure Juwan Roberts was matched up against Yancey Gates about a decade ago. So we're going to be seeing him, LJ Cryer, like you said. I mean, these guys are dogs.
Different conferences. You'd have to go with like Octavius Ellis or someone.
It doesn't matter. You got the point.
He's been there for a long time.
Around forever, but
you know who's backstage? Who can answer? We got Vaughn. I believe it's Vaughn from Houston. What's up, Vaughn? How we doing?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? Congratulations.
Hey, that's a big win, man. Houston Cougars coming up. Your Houston Cougars. What are you prepared for in terms of Cincinnati coming into town from a Cougars fan's perspective?
Listen, hey, we just smell blood in the water. But listen, I can't co-sign a Cincinnati win, okay? But you guys are going to be on a national stage. So if you guys can keep the game close, make Houston have to win it at the end, and then if you can just go ahead and win the rest of your games, and maybe one or two in the tournament, in the conference tournament, I think you got it locked up. But you got to complete the task.
Vaughn, you're the nicest Houston fan I've ever met in my life. I mean, I see the banter between fan bases on Twitter, and there's not many people that hop into a show and keep it civil, and they're like, as we're sitting here like, hell is falling, get the pitchforks. You're just like, Cats are going to be all right. They're a little soft, but they'll turn it around.
Yeah, they're good. They're good. But, hey, let me tell you about J1, our four. I went to University of Houston in 1990 and 91. I was a student there. I could have sworn J1 was there. I'm just saying. He's been around so long.
See?
You're not lying, man. Hey, Vaughn, good stuff. Thanks for calling in. Hope to talk to you after the actually, we don't hope to talk to you after the Houston game, because I don't imagine you'd be calling in if we somehow go in there and end the streak. But we'll see.
Houston doesn't need it. Houston doesn't need this win. We need to win. You guys will be fine either way.
Yeah.
I can't co-sign it. I just can't.
Amen, man. Hey, good stuff, Vaughn. Appreciate you for joining the program today. Call lines are open. Link is going back in the chat as we continue here on Chatterbox Bearcats. I'll let you get back to Houston. Your final thoughts before we give a little ode to Mick Cronin, man.
No, I mean, I think I've said all I can say. I'd give us like a 7% chance of winning that game. I don't know. Let's check the ESPN BPI, because they might just give us a 90% based on some of the projections they've thrown out this year. It's going to be very difficult, but Vaughn's right. Like we said earlier, if you keep this game even tight at all, that's going to creep into the minds of the committee.
There are humans on the committee, right? It's not all computers.
Yeah, exactly. It's not all robots. Gets into the head of the committee, and it won't hurt our net ranking at all. The computers still like us from a net Ken Palm standpoint. And then you go ahead and take care of business in the last two. And you got to win at least one or two games, the Big 12. And then I think you're really sweating. Like, it's going to come down to what they favor, what, certain metric they look at. Hopefully there's some UC fans on that board. We don't know. But yeah, it would be really cool if we won this game, but to really think that that's going to happen based on what we've seen this year is going to be tough. But we did play Iowa State tough, and Iowa State's damn good too.
I didn't clip it just because it's post-production and or I guess it's pre-producing and it takes a while to do, and time is money, time is valuable. But there was a clip of Houdini earlier in the season. It was actually preseason when everyone was high on this team. Everyone was high on this team, minus Jeff Goodman and Ryan Hammer on our show. Not Goodman on the show. Goodman, if you're watching, you're free to come on. But you even said, you went as high as saying that you weren't scared of the Houston Cougars anymore. You said it's a different day. I think this is the time Wes Miller takes them down. Houston, they're going to have a down year. And non-conference slate, it kind of looked that way. Like they had lost some games. Granted, Alabama, Auburn, and then a stunner against San Diego State. But I said we were going to cue up the Home Alone, I'm not afraid of you anymore. Kevin McAllister to the old man shovel slayer. Let's just say Kelvin Sampson came out with the shovel and you turned around screaming, running inside like Kevin in that moment. They are tough, man. They are tough.
No, they are. And thank you for reminding me of that. But at that point in time, hey, it was a material change that happened. And they don't have that, go to, like they have LJ Cryer, like we said, obviously stud, but they don't have like that Rob Gray or that, Sheed that was just next level. Like you get them the ball. It's like,
yeah,
they're much better than everyone else on the floor. They don't necessarily have that. Just a collective team. They're very good. And yeah, Natty Ron, we would have to win multiple in the Big 12 tournament. One certainly wouldn't get us in. If you win 3, I think we can talk. But it's going to be tough, man.
All right. I want to finish this thing off with a little ode to Mick Cronin, the former Bearcats basketball coach. And look, this may be controversial. I don't know. I've heard that Eric Lilly may be pissed. He's bedridden right now. He can't hop onto the show even if he wanted to. He's struggling over there in the east side of Cincinnati. But he said, stick to our team. I said, this is a proud member of our program in Mick Cronin, program's history, winning 500 games at UCLA. It gets a golf clap, but I did want to do a deep dive on this because if Luke Fickell won like his 100th career game at Wisconsin, I'm not saying a damn word. I'm just like, oh, good for Luke Fickell. It feels different to me for Cronin. Won the Cincinnati ties, the alum on Huggins' staff. You go a little further than that. He inherited a disaster. Like I get the arena was awful, and that played a little bit into a part of it. Like there weren't as many sellouts back in the day. If your team wasn't as good, it wasn't as good of an experience. I get that. But the lack of fan support that Mick Cronin got early on in his tenure was freaking shameful. Wes Miller got $11K for his first game against Evansville. Mick got $7K. Mick got less than $9,000 for every ranked opponent he played from us the first 2 full years. That rebuild was absurd. What he walked into nowadays, you could just get new players in, right? Especially before NIL really kicked in. You can just bring in different guys. Back then, it was just like, hey, I need to field a team. Let me find every JUCO that hasn't signed at this point. Letters of intent are harder to get out of. You can't just transfer left and right whenever you wanted to. Like, it was a legit 1,000% difficult rebuild. And he had some bad teams, man, but they played hard, and Fifth Third Arena was empty, man. It was empty, and it seemed like the fan base wasn't fully on board, and it wasn't Mick's fault, It was all Nancy Zimpher. It was just kind of the state of the program at that moment. There was a little bit of apathy. You go from Bob Huggins, Andy Kennedy comes in, he doesn't get the job, and you bring in this outside guy. But what Mick was a Pitino assistant. He was a Huggins assistant. And I think it's safe to say at this point that he's just a really good basketball coach. He's been to a Final Four, has been to, 4 Sweet 16s at this point. Took Cincinnati back from the dead. Like they were dead in the Big East Conference with not the greatest facilities, brought him back. And it did feel like at times some of his own fans hated him. And I get it. He is cocky as hell. He does have that little man syndrome to him. Like he is a character, to say the least, a fiery guy. But his former players love him, which I think is huge. Interesting personality. The only encounters I've had with him are behind the bench when I sat there courtside, and he was just screaming at his players like a sociopath on the floor. I mean, for God's sakes, he had to leave for a medical condition during that one season and tone it down a little bit because he is a maniac, but he is a hell of a coach. He goes to the American. They lose UConn. They lose Louisville out of the conference. Obviously, it's a completely different scenario now being in the Big 12, but they were playing Tulsa and Tulane and East Carolina every night. The recruiting dropped off. I do feel like after that UNLV job where he flirted with it, that was kind of like I'm seriously thinking about leaving here. Like, I'm a human being. I think I'm better than this job right now, given the resources I have. And it showed in his recruiting, I thought. I mean, he was landing guys like Toyambi and Hardnett and Fredericks, whoever it may be. And granted, he got the most out of a lot of those players, some of them on a tournament team. But it was clear that he did kind of have a foot out the door. But I will always hold him to a different regard than someone like a Luke Fickell, because Luke Fickell left for Wisconsin. Like, okay, you haven't been relevant in the Big Ten for the most part in 20 years, whatever it is. You have Cincinnati rolling. You're going to a power conference. You've helped build this thing, and you're going to walk away now, you coward. For Mick, it was a little different. Going to UCLA, one of the best programs in the country. You really can't blame him there. So I know it's going to be a controversial take, thanking the guy and giving him his flowers, but 500 wins, man. That's a hard thing to do. And I think if it ever got to the point where, you know, his dad's a little bit older, he's a Cincy guy. They are in the Big 12 now. If things ever went sour at UCLA, I wouldn't call it the most insane thing in the world to see one of those Rich Rod reunions down the road. Now, I don't like the Rich Rod reunion at West Virginia, so hopefully it's not in that regard. But yeah, that's just my take on it, my honest opinions. Hopefully I did not offend anyone.
I mean, I think most people are Mick Cronin fans in the Cincinnati fan base. I don't think that's a hot take at all. I mean, he was our coach for what, like 14 seasons? Made the tournament 9 straight times. You know, struggled in that capacity as far as making deep runs. Undefeated in press conferences. Some of the best stuff you'll ever see, making all his players take off the jersey. I mean, there's countless. He's still doing it right now. He's still in his prime as far as press conferences.
It works.
No, it does. So he's one of the old school coaches. He's not a player's coach. He's going to get on you. And, you know, 95% of his old players are like that. That helped form me as a man, you know, all this shit.
Did you see his comment?
Form us.
Did you see his comment after the game? He was like, I don't care how these guys think of me when they're 18 years old. I care about how these guys look at me and what I did for them and how I held them accountable when they're 30. When they're looking back, he gave one of those just all-time great quotes. But, man, losing as many games as he did in the Xavier series, it hurt because there were so many memes of him going around and the way that he handled the whole Makura situation. Like, if you want to use the word whiny, like, that is 100% fair. You know, like, most
he'd complain. He'd complain in every
yeah.
press conference. He'd complain every single time. I mean, he's doing it now. He used to complain that we had to travel to the West Coast at Cincinnati. Now he's complaining on the West Coast that he has to travel to the East Coast. And that reporter was like, well, they have to travel to the West Coast. He's like, excuse me? You think it's tough to travel over here? 75 like, you were just bitching about it, but no, that's what Mick Cronin is. Maybe we'll get freaking Dan Cronin. We were going back and forth on Twitter a little bit. He wants to come on. But yeah, I think most people like Mick Cronin. Congratulations to him. We'll see. I mean, I've heard rumors that he's on a hot seat. Yeah, right now it looks like they're going to make the tournament, but probably not to the standard of what UCLA is. We will see. I don't think he's coming back to UC. We got a season to win still, Chuck. But yeah, kudos to Mick Cronin. We don't care. As long as he's not coaching at like Kansas State, I'll root for Mick Cronin all day. I don't care.
Is Matt Myers getting these games mixed up? Because we had this conversation earlier. I don't know why the name Deion Dixon was brought up, but you said, oh, yeah, he dribbled off his foot freshman year, Big East tournament, sophomore year, whatever. And Matt Myers is saying, I thought Mick was going to kill Rashad Bishop when he dribbled the ball off his foot in the Big East tournament versus Georgetown. It was Deion Dixon versus West Virginia, or did that happen twice?
The Deion Dixon one is the one I remember. I don't know if it happened twice. I mean, as a UC fan, I'm sure somebody dribbled off their foot twice in Mick's 14 seasons. So sure, I'll believe that.
Okay. Big win today for the Bearcats. That's the biggest takeaway because it was one that you had to win. On paper, Baylor still looks good, and now you may be fighting with them for a spot on the bubble. Lily and Niehaus are going to have a show either tomorrow or on Thursday to break down the bubble. Lily's doing his best to get a bracketologist on, although based on his medical or his health status right now, he may be not doing a show anytime soon. He may just be getting the bracketologist on for us, but we will definitely get you another show coming up in the next few days before Houston. And the bracketology is the big thing right now because Cincinnati is not 100% dead yet at 7-10 in conference. Look, they went out in the regular season. They are in. That requires a win over Houston. But hey, you take it one game at a time, and the Bearcats are in the catbird seat technically. But as Natty Ron said in the chat, we ain't beating Houston. Hey, crazier things have happened, man. What's the update on that Oklahoma State game before we call it a night?
Oklahoma State game. Hey, they're still leading. 5:40 left. Oklahoma State is up 60-54. That's about as crazy. I mean, granted, it's at Oklahoma State, so I mean, it certainly changes a whole lot. But hey, if Oklahoma State can beat Iowa State, maybe UC can get hot from three. Maybe we get a Jizzle James where he just goes ballistic, something like that. Josh Reed just keeps Josh reading, at least in this first half, and we rebound the basketball and limit our turnovers because that defense is going to be physical. They're going to be knocking us around, man. And as we know, on the road, the whistles don't tend to favor us. What if we beat UC and then Vaughn comes back on the show and just starts cussing us out? We were like, he's the nicest fan ever. He's like, you guys are pieces of shit. I hope that happens. Vaughn, we're getting you on regardless of what happens.
Oh, good God. That's that Southwestern Tex-Mex hospitality. Final score, Cincinnati 69, the Baylor Bears 67. Big win for Cincinnati. Bubble.
Trending up. We're trending up. Hey, you got to like what you see based on this season being dead. We're still fighting. We're still fighting. That heart is beating ever so slightly.
Remember that Bob Huggins meme that's out there? Why all the long faces? We are not dead yet. All we want, man, all we want is for Jizzle to be finding the shoes come tournament season. And if he doesn't find those Calvin Cambridge shoes and the shot's not falling, we've given the opposition enough tape at this point to where the Aziz lobs will be back. Why not us? Why not the Cincinnati Bearcats? From the show that brought you the burial, that brought you the eulogy, the resurrection is on the way. Cincinnati Bearcats basketball is not done yet. Chuck Walter, Houdini, this is Chatterbox Bearcats. Thank you for joining the show today. We will see you after the Houston Cougars game. Peace. I think Jizzle James is an all-conference level talent. I thought his ceiling at one point last year was Davion Mitchell. I think his ceiling's Ja Morant.